man. What is it today?
What is it?
Oh, atheism. Yes, I'm into that. Yes.
Oh, are you?
Well, I don't believe in anything really.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See,
I reject supernatural claims because I haven't yet found any evidence or proof of it.
Sure.
You know, and all religions. To me, it's like, well, people invented that.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm willing to change my mind, of course, but you know, but
no,
so it's not a belief system; it's a lack of belief in that.
Well, I don't know. I mean, so for example, for you to have evidence, what are you looking for?
Anything from you know that these particular prophets and gods actually exist, that miracles are true, and you're not just saying, you know, you're not just finding something like a prophecy, for instance, saying, look, it says here in this book this would happen, and elsewhere in the book it says it did happen. Well, anyone could write that down.
Yeah, of course, I agree.
The Bible's full of it.
But I'm saying, like, for example, say even if you go one step back, right? So if you say, well, I'm saying even if someone said, okay, let's have a discussion on whether say a creator exists or not.
Yeah.
Right. But I'm saying, well, what would convince you to say actually a creator exists? When you say evidence, right? What evidence would what would be sufficient, right? To say to say that's an evidence for me, right? And like for example, some people say, look, if I don't see a creator, right, or if I can't shake his hand,
something like that, I suppose.
Right. So then so for them is, unless they have some sense perception of the creator, or I literally can see him, they're not going to believe it, right? So I'm saying, what is a proof?
Well, you see, I'm assuming that your proof is the Qur'an and the whole world around you. So you see, God must have made that. But there are plenty of gods on earth. You know, how do you know Krishna, the Hindu god, didn't make everything? So you're just slotting in a god and saying, aha, you see? Trees and the rivers and everything in the sky. Sure. There you go. Sure. That's proof.
So for me, I think if you leave the names aside, right? So Krishna or whatever, because these are just names, right? So someone's given. So if we just say, well, away from this name, a creator, call it what you want.
Yeah.
Call it Allah, call it God, call it. These are just, I suppose, names. Yeah. Right. Attributed to an entity, right?
Yeah.
But away from the names, well, my issue isn't the names. I'm saying, well, what would constitute proof? So for me, I'm saying, if someone says to me, well, it says it in the Bible or the Qur'an, for me, that wouldn't be sufficient proof.
No.
Right? For me either. No. Right? Because like you said, I mean, Shakespeare could have written a book and said X, Y, and Z, right? I could write a book tomorrow.
Yeah. What is proof for you? What proved it to you? Or did you...
Yeah.
I'm assuming you grew up with Islam.
So. I was born, born a Muslim, So we don't have a reborn sort of thing. But
so you didn't have a moment where you didn't believe in it and then you did?
No, but so during the course of as I was growing up, there did come points where I had to sort of seriously question it.
Yeah.
Right. For a number of reasons, I suppose, because obviously you're growing up, you learn about science and the whole issue of evolution and things like this, Big Bang. So it gets you to question, obviously, some of your own beliefs, right? What makes me, right, convinced that these are actual beliefs that I could be sure about, and not things that I've just, like you said, slotted in, right? Or they call them God of the gaps, right? Right. So,
exactly.
So for me, the issue here is, again, I mean, look, for me, what constitutes a proof is whether it rationally, if it makes sense, right? So for me, for example, someone could, if I hear a knock on the door, right, I assume that there's somebody at the door.
Yeah,
okay?
And you can easily prove that,
Yeah, so, I mean, but I can't see the person, right? I don't know, I can't be sure.
But you've audibly heard the knock and you can look out the window or out the door.
Yeah, I'm saying, but that comes afterwards, right? But when you hear the knock, you instantly think, okay,
So what is the knock of God?
Okay, so I'm saying that for me, you know, in terms of the point that you were saying, it has to be something that's seen or something like that. I'm saying, for me, that's not necessarily proof, right?
Yeah.
Just okay, yeah, it's seen, can be, right? But that in itself isn't. So for me, the discussion goes back in terms of, I suppose, the start of the universe, right? Could something like the universe, right, if I said to you, your jacket, right?
Yeah.
You know, is it your jacket? Does it have a creator or a designer? Right?
Yes.
What makes you say that?
Because you can look at the label, you could go to the factory, the website, you could even go to the
But you haven't,
people who
right?
made it.
I assume you haven't been to the
No,
factory.
but you can do. You can't do that with the universe.
Okay, but right, no, but I'm saying, but your jacket right now,
Yeah.
you haven't been to the factory, I assume, that's made it.
I don't need to.
No, I'm saying, but you haven't, right? But
No,
you
no,
believe that it has been created.
I don't know if believe is the right word.
Okay, but you're sure.
Yeah.
So, or why are you saying that just came out of nothing?
No. It's just,
Okay.
I know,
But how?
People-
That's what I'm trying to get to.
I've seen factories, I've seen
Okay.
documentaries about clothes
Right.
being made.
Right. Right. So you know that it must have come from there.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying, but even if you've seen the factories and stuff, why can't your jacket be a unique case that it hasn't come from those factories?
Where else would it have come from?
Well, that's what I'm asking. What do you? Why are you?
I would never
sure?
think that the jacket came out of nowhere, like
Why?
poof.
Why?
Because we know those things don't happen.
Why not?
Because people wish for things to happen like that all the
Yeah.
time, and it doesn't happen.
Okay.
Sadly, it would be cool if it did.
Yeah, no, but this is my point, right?
Yeah.
Something is convincing you, because even though you're saying, yeah, I've seen things being made and stuff in the factory, you haven't seen your jacket being made, or this particular jacket. But still, and you weren't there at the factory when it was being made,
Yeah.
right? You've picked it up from somewhere or bought it from somewhere, and I'm saying, well, what makes you sure, right, that it was definitely created? And actually, if we're being honest, then it's actually.
So I know the way the world works. I don't know the way the universe works.
Sure.
Other than what science is slowly finding out.
Sure.
Not that they may ever find their
Sure.
whole answer,
Yeah,
but they
yeah.
are finding things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I'm saying, but what makes you sure about your jacket? Going back to your jacket, it's the fact that you don't believe that all of those
I
things.
didn't see it being made,
Yeah.
but I can be reasonably confident
Sure.
that a human being made it.
Sure.
Because I've seen human beings making clothes.
Okay, okay, but I'm saying, but that jacket actually is because you don't believe all of those different components that's required to make a jacket could come together by themselves.
Yeah.
I think that's what it comes down to, right? Is whether you believe all those different components, if they could have come together themselves, right, out of nothing, without no outside influence, and created a jacket.
So, cutting to the chase, you're saying the universe couldn't have come out of nowhere. There had to be a person who designed it.
No, I wouldn't say a person.
An entity,
right?
an intellect.
Entity, right.
Okay, where did that come from? Where did that intellect come from with the ability to create a universe?
So for me to say that, I'll have to. So one, I would say, so going back to the thing that there was a cause, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that cause, what it is, if it's a person or whatever. I'm saying there is a cause, right? And actually, even amongst the science, many scientists, I don't think they would necessarily reject that something caused the universe to come into existence, even though they dispute that amongst
there's
themselves.
the idea that matter and energy always existed.
Yeah.
There's, I think, a new school of thought where there was literally nothing, and then matter did come out of nothing. And I think that's been observed, something called quantum fluctuations, something like that.
Yeah. This whole
observed or measured,
God's particle and the.
I don't have any problem thinking that matter could have come out of nothing, or that matter always existed.
Yeah.
Right, but
so I'm
religious
saying,
people will say to me that, well, God is outside of time.
he always existed?
Okay, so why can't matter always have existed?
So here's my issue, right? Okay, so there's two issues that I have. So one is clear that also what you're trying to use. I think you're trying to use science as a benchmark, right?
That's all we have.
No, not necessarily. Science, I would say, it can't even begin to answer some questions.
No, it can't.
Right. So for example,
it might never answer all the questions.
Well, I don't think it can. Not might. It can't, because look, science in itself. What is the scientific method?
You observe, you test, you hopefully get it peer reviewed. You do repeatable experiments.
Okay, so generally it's empirical study. So you observe something through your senses.
Yeah.
Right. So there's. So you look at reality. So there's some empirical reality that has to exist.
Yeah.
You observe it, right, and you make an induction.
Yes.
Right. So that whole
deduction.
Or deduction or induction, because normally in science, what they will do is they take a general data and then try to draw from that data a particular conclusion.
But the data was got by deduction.
Yeah, the data, you're right. I'm saying the data can. So, for example, they may go and look at 100 birds, for example, right, or 100 sheep, right? And they'll monitor the sheep and they'll say, well, here we have 100 sheep, right? They're white, right? Yeah. And they'll draw a conclusion from that, right? So they go from a general premise to a particular conclusion, right? Now, those observations, in your opinion, are they set in stone or can they change?
In science, things can change.
Right. So if they can change, then what does that mean? That your conclusion today, right, can be completely wrong tomorrow.
Yes, which is fine in science.
You're right, but I'm saying that doesn't lead you to any particular. You can't be sure. Or in fact, forget sure, you can't even say that this is a reality or the truth.
Until you get to a point where it is generally accepted that what you have, like gravity, which they still call the theory of gravity, is a thing. Nobody is. I don't think we're going to say at this point that, oh no, gravity isn't a thing. We got to the point where, we're pretty sure about that.
Yeah. But I'm saying, let's say, no, but even that, you can't even say we're sure based on the scientific method, because all you can say is based on what we have today, right? So that doesn't take into account what may come tomorrow, right? Because what they're saying is that we don't know, right? Essentially, they're saying, well, this is just based upon an observation that's very limited at this moment in time. Right? And we've just drawn a conclusion.
But isn't a believer a theist starting with the answer and then finding things to fit?
No, that's my point. But that's what I'm saying.
But you didn't search for God, did you? Yeah. You grew up a Muslim.
So I did. I agree with you. I agree. But I'm saying for you, I'm not the example really, right? I'm saying that's not the way one should become a theist, right? I'm saying that the way to become a theist is for one to understand or to research and rationally try to understand and prove that God exists, right? And that was a conversation we were having about there being a cause and things like this. And that's where
I don't think an atheist should try to prove that a God exists unless he wants to be a theist.
Right. No. Well, fine.
I have no need for a supernatural God at all. So I'm not going to go look for one.
Fine, but I'm saying even if he begins to ask the question, right, whether God exists, he has to have some starting premise to say, look, how am I going to prove it? And I'm saying, if he says, well, I'm going to use science as a benchmark to prove it, because like you said, that's all we know, then I'm saying that's not that methodology, or the science as a methodology, the scientific method.
You won't find God through science.
You can't. Saying because I'm saying, but even many things around you, right, that you believe, right, you can't come through, right? You can't come to the conclusion about those things,
Yes.
right, through the scientific method, right? So science, I'm saying, as a methodology, is limited. It also implores, for example, many devices or many things that it relies on, things like logic and things like that can be flawed in themselves.
But you rely on science every day, or you wouldn't use your iPhone or go for an operation in the hospital.
So I'm not. What I'm not saying. So this is a thing. I'm not saying science is a bad thing.
Yeah.
I'm saying science has a remit. Right, of course it does, right? And that's why in the Islamic tradition, we have used science, right, in actually developing many things, algorithms and all this stuff, right? Mathematics. I mean, a lot of some of their origins lie with the Muslims and Greeks and whatever, right? So we're not denying that science has a role.
There's lots of ways to discover things.
Right.
Science is relatively new, really.
So this is my thing. So I'm saying science shouldn't be the premise to say, well, whether God exists or not. I'm saying that the starting point should be whether rationally having a creator makes sense or not, right? And I'm saying when you say, sorry?
No, it doesn't. Because you're asking me to say that, okay, I can't figure out how the universe started. Yeah. I'm just going to imagine that a wizard basically went zap.
No.
That's what it sounds like. I'm not saying that's what it sounds like.
We haven't had that discussion yet. What you're saying, and that's the point I wanted to go back to, is because you're saying something can come out of nothing.
Yeah.
Right? And you're saying that's based upon, and that's where the point that we sort of diverge from is because from science that's being observed. I think what is a word that you use.
I'm not saying that's absolutely true. It's just something that I've become aware of recently, and it might be true.
Right. So I'm saying rationally, that doesn't make any sense, right? So what you're saying, there was nothing, right? And something came out of nothing.
Yes, but a creator living forever and then one day having the knowledge to create a perfect universe, just create it. That doesn't make sense either.
Okay, fine. So let's say that doesn't make sense. But
you're putting a man in the sky because you're a man. That's what people have done.
Well,
we're human beings. We make things. A man in the sky must have made everything.
Okay, no. So I'm saying let's forget that. But I'm saying this idea that something could come from nothing, because we don't believe in this idea that there was a man in the sky and whatever else, right? Yeah. We're saying that we're saying because there's the cause, right? Naturally, there has to be, right? Oh, sorry, there's an effect, right? We see a universe, we see it perfectly functioning universe. There's an element of design and things required.
It's not perfectly functioning.
No, I mean, listen, we can argue about that, right? But it's a complex universe that's been created, right?
Yeah.
And what you're saying that came out of nothing, and I'm saying rationally that argument doesn't make sense.
It could have come out of nothing, or matter and energy could have always existed.
So that's like saying that jacket came out of nothing, but you wouldn't accept that, right? Because you're saying something as simple as your jacket can't come out of nothing.
You mean, are you talking about going way back to the beginning of time? The matter of the jacket couldn't have come out of nothing.
No, I'm saying your jacket, just as it is now. Yeah. Forget going back. I'm saying just the jacket as it is, right now. Yeah. If I said to you, and that's why I asked you, do you think it came out of nothing, or do you think that there was something, someone created it, even though you haven't sensed it, you haven't seen it? What makes you come to that conclusion?
Because I know how the world works and how people make clothes.
But I'm saying, what was it?
I want to know why you are sure that a God, or that Allah created everything.
Just as you're sure someone created a jacket, your jacket didn't just come out from
I can go find the designer of this much easier than you can find.
Fine, I'm saying, but right now, that's why I asked you. Right?
You could be right, but I just don't know how to find a God.
So that's why I asked you, right? And that's what I'm saying. There has to be some level of consistency throughout, right? We can't apply one premise to God, right?
I don't think they're on the same level, though. The jacket thing.
They are. Why not?
We're talking cosmically, How did everything come into being?
I'm saying if simple things require a creator, more complex things complex things,
I don't know. I just don't think it follows.
By necessity requires a creator. That's the point. So what you're saying, well, simple things need a creator, like things like this, right? But more complex things can come out nothing. And I'm saying that doesn't make sense.
I don't know. There could be an entity, a mind, you know, and there could be, but I just don't think there's any way of ever really knowing.
Yeah.
And holy books aren't going to do it for me, because they're just stuff which men wrote down.
Even the Qur'an doesn't ask you to do that. The Qur'an never says believe in the Creator or Allah or whatever, just because the Qur'an says it.
But that's why you're here today, though, to convince people that Qur'an is right.
The Qur'an,
not the Bible.
No, the Qur'an says لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, right? Don't you reflect and don't you ponder, right? Or God says, I've given you a brain, right? يَعْقِلُونَ, think and ponder and reflect, right? So,
I do.
Yeah, so God is not saying, well, believe, right? Just because the Qur'an is saying that.
Yeah.
Right? Allah is asking people, or God's asking people, look, to use your brain, to think, right? So we're not asking people, look, you should consider Islam. Actually, a lot of our discussions here is not even to do with the fundamental beliefs, actually. It's about creating understanding and things like that. But on this particular thing, God is asking people to think. And I'm saying that thinking process, right, and that's what we were going through. And sorry to keep coming back on the jacket. A phone, even a phone, right? Your phone. Right? If I said to you, it's a complex thing. If I said to you, well, just because the phone has certain materials like glass and which comes from sand and stuff like that, and one day I was walking through the desert, and out the blue there was a phone on the ground. You would assume that someone dropped that phone on the floor. You wouldn't think, well, there's just loads of particles in the sand and that they somehow over time just came together and made something complex. But why not?
Well, I've explained this because I live in the world. I know how things are made. I know people make them.
But this is my point. But that I'm saying
you can't apply that to the universe.
Why not? Why not? Because the universe.
Because I can't go out into the universe and go and examine every invisible realm and go,
okay, so from what we understand, so all your phone is made out of what? Matter.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What's the universe made out of?
As far as we know, matter and energy.
Okay, matter and energy, right? So in basic things, away from complexity, because you're going through saying, well, it's very complex and there's so many different components to it. And I'm saying, yeah, you're right. But that's more reason to say there had to be someone who brought those things together.
Someone. So
someone. I'm not saying don't call it Allah, don't call it anything like that.
It's fine if you have come to that conclusion. I'm just saying I find it difficult. It just seems like projecting a human form into the universe.
No, so all we're saying is that
people tend to do that all the time.
So from Islamic belief, that's obviously I'm saying that's wrong, right? I'm saying that they say that's that creator, right? Call it whatever you want, right? That creator, and we say he's unlike anything else, right?
Yeah.
And so that creator is someone or something that has a level of intelligence to bring about, the universe, right? He has some will and power, right? So, and that's what we're saying. That creator, that's what we believe in, right? So and then the question is, and then how do you, what's our relationship if we're down here to him, right? Which is a different discussion, right? Yeah. But that's what we're saying. We're saying, no, there had to be a creator. Right?
You're hoping that people along the street here will at least come to accept that there's a creator, not necessarily the one that you.
Yeah, of course, and because I don't think you can. There's one, and that's the Islamic belief is based upon three main things. One, a creator, then the issue of prophets and messengers, and then the third is the Qur'an itself. Right?
Yeah.
So just because someone believes in a creator, right, he doesn't answer everything, right? Because then, like you said, someone has to say, well, okay, if there is a creator, then what about, how do I know these prophets genuinely existed, right? Or that this guy Muhammad wasn't somebody who was just gone mad and they just managed.
We really only have the books to go by.
Right. So, or even the books itself. What makes the Qur'an very different to, say, the Bible? Or how do I even know that that is a book from the Creator, right? So they had these to prove these things. It requires people to do, their own not own research, but it requires more investigation, right? But but the point is, from just that initial discussion, it's about saying, well, the Creator itself, believing in Him, is not the answer to everything, right? That's, I suppose, part of is one step, I suppose, right?
Okay.
And like you said, and people can then say, well, actually, other things in Islam don't make sense to me, right?
It's just, okay. Do you believe Muhammad was a real person?
Yeah.
And
the only
God
thing
spoke
is,
to
what's
him?
the time?
Wow. Oh boy. Whenever I talk to Muslims, it just seems to go on and on and on without really getting anywhere. He never really did give me any solid evidence to why there is a God. He just kept coming back to, how do you know your jacket exists? I'm pretty sure I know how my jacket exists. What he was saying really is what a lot of his Muslim colleagues have said to me in the past, is that it's rational that a God did it. And of course they mean their God. I mean, he said he wasn't particularly talking about his God, but of course he was. Just because you think something is rational doesn't mean it's true. You have to search, and you have to do it in a way that you can have empirical, testable evidence, and you will never be able to do that with a God, even if there is one. And even if you say, well, the Bible is a miracle, and this, that, and the other, that's not going to do it, because there are plenty of holy books and they all have the same claims. And that's his beliefs.